Today we have the privilege of speaking with Lesley Lewis-Perry. Lesley, can you tell us about yourself, introduce yourself, and tell us about the work you're doing?
Yes, hi Nori.
Hi.
Nice to be with you. Yeah. I'm a holistic medicine practitioner, my background, for the last 25 years. And I specialize in working with the emotional body.
So when you say we're going to get into this in more depth later, but when you say you specialize in working with the emotional body, can you say just a little bit more about what you mean?
Well, we have a mental body, a physical body, and an emotional body, and also the spiritual body. And I've worked with all of them, and I've found over the years that the emotional body, once that is healed or aligned with the other bodies, that physical ailments, it's a much quicker process than working with any of the other bodies. And also it's the least, there are more practitioners using modalities specifically for the emotional body now, but that wasn't the case up until probably the last 5 years. Mostly they work with the mental body or the physical body, primarily.
Uh-huh. So how would you say that working with the emotional body with people is helping to contribute to creating heaven on earth?
Well, our emotions are our sat-nav. Well, our emotional bodies tell us the truth about the any given situation in the moment. Whereas the mental body, for instance, our thoughts, can be deceiving. What we think isn't always the truth. It depends on the situation. But the emotional body, you cannot lie about how you feel. I mean, you can tell, a person will say, "How are you feeling?" And you'll say, "Yeah, I'm great." But actually, you know inside you're not.
So we're going to come back to this, as I say, and explore this in a little more depth. But can you give us a bit of a sense of your background, your early background, your family, where you grew up, how you grew up, and how that has, over time, your education and experiences, how that led you to doing this work?
Yeah, well, I was born in Wales, just a typical working class family. A very lovely working class family, by the way. I started out doing PA work, secretarial, and continued with that for a little while. Then I had my family. And when I had my first 2 children, they were both very ill for different reasons, to the point where we weren't even sure if they would actually survive. And that changed my perspective on life greatly. Then I was ill myself.
Could you say how that changed your perspective on life, the illness of your children?
Well, before that, it was all about, where I lived, what I did for a living. It was very much more materialistically based, which was normal. I mean, for that time, the 70s and the 80s. But when my children were ill, I realized that life was much more important. Health was much more important. And that your life can change in the blink of an eye. And there's nothing, I had no control over that. So whereas prior to that, I thought I had an element of control because of the decisions I was making. Where to live, etc., etc. When my children were ill, it was a real wake-up call as to actually, I don't have very much control at all.
And so how did that impact you in terms of, did you start to look for how you could have a positive impact on them? Is that kind of where that led you?
Well, they became the focus of everything, making sure that they were well. I mean, they actually came out of it. Both of them came out of it really well, and they were very healthy. Now they're very healthy. They're grown up and they're very healthy. But my emphasis was, that's where the emphasis on health started. I had to start looking at diets. I had to start watching how they were progressing. So the focus was very much on that, and not so much, even though I was still, I didn't change overnight. I still had, I still wanted a nice home, and I still wanted to have a career and such like. But the emphasis was more on them and their health than anything else. And also, I'm not taking anything for granted, not taking life for granted.
And when you say you weren't taking life for granted, how did that show up for you? Was it a sense of gratitude for the good things that came along? And what was the impact of not taking life?
Yeah, I wasn't consciously looking for things to be grateful for. I just was. And I decided the things that I didn't like, the things that were, I had no time anymore for things that brought unhappiness, shall we say. So I became more optimistic. I began, in the moment. I think I went more into the moment and appreciating. I would say appreciation was a better word than gratitude. Yeah.
Now, did I hear you say that you also were ill?
Yeah, then I became ill, and I had so many visits to the doctors to try and find out what was wrong with me, because I couldn't get out of bed. I was so tired. I felt so awful, and I think I became labelled as hypochondriac by the doctors, because I had all kinds of tests and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And then I went to see a naturopath, which was a last resort for me. I didn't, quackery. And it was a last resort. And he blew me away. He told me exactly what was wrong with me just in less than half an hour. And it turned out to be systemic Candida albicans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So something that was easily remedied, but it was devastating, the effects it was having on me mentally, emotionally, physically. So I started that regime that he gave me. And one day I was always asking him questions. And he said, Lesley, you ask so many questions. Why don't you just go and learn? So I did. I went to London and to the holistic school of holistic medicine. I studied with Lawrence Plaskett. I think that college is called something else. It was College of Nutritional Medicine, it was called at the time. And cut. My mind's gone blank. I was concerned about.
Yeah, for some reason, this is periodically freezing, and I'm not sure why. I don't usually get this happening. It's frozen again.
Before I was ill, that I would be working with medicine.
Lesley, it froze again. I went to London and I studied with Lawrence Plaskett. And wait a second. Let me try one other thing here. This is so bizarre because it's been working quite well.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, start again I went to London and studied with, okay.
Right, so I went to the College of Nutritional Medicine and studied with Lawrence Plaskett. And that was where the journey of holistic medicine began, because I was a completely different person. And I then wanted to help others with that particular condition. And in order to do that, I felt I had to have some credence to do that. Mm-hmm. So if somebody had said to me, prior to my being ill, Lesley, you're going to be working with, vitamins and minerals and nutrition, I would have laughed at them because that was the person I was. And as the more I delved into it and the more I learned, that opened up a completely different world for me that I knew nothing about prior.
Yeah, it sounds as if you went from being very focused on material things and having a good life and in the material plane, and then getting having your children ill and then yourself ill. You realize how important health was, and life. And then to when you began to heal yourself through nutrition, then you shifted, it sounds like, to wanting to help other people. So the focus was off of you and your family, just that now to helping more people.
Yes. Yeah. I became a zealot, a health zealot, and upset a lot of people in the process in my family, because all of a sudden I was seeing, like, for instance, the E for Additives book had just come out. And
the what?
It was called E for Additives.
Okay.
The book. And I was horrified because my children were still small. So I was giving them Ribena. In the UK, there's a drink called Ribena. I don't know if it's available in America or anywhere else. And when I looked in the E for Additives book, there was an additive and it said, under no circumstances should this be given to children.
Wow.
So, I was like, oh, and it's like I had to tell everybody. I'm not like that now, but this was when I was first learning and I was horrified by what I was learning.
Wow.
So I became a zealot, a health zealot for a while.
Interesting. So where did you go from there? You said you're no longer doing that. It sounds as if there's been another major shift that's taken place in your life's trajectory.
Yeah. So I still use nutrition now and again if it's going to help somebody. So I use the knowledge, but I don't class it's not my main thing at all. My mum died. My mum passed away, and again, there was another shift.
When was that?
That was in 95.
Okay. And what was it? What shift happened then when your mother died?
I started seeing things. I started seeing and just knowing things which I couldn't explain. They would just pop in. Then they wouldn't pop into my head. They would kind of pop into this area, a feeling. I mean, obviously, I would see colours. I started to see colours around people because by now I was working with clients. And I just started to see things. And I had studied reflexology at this point. And I was working with reflexology a lot. So a lot of my clients, I was working with their feet to stimulate the healing of the body through the feet. And yeah, I just got some very strange experiences, which I couldn't explain. Kept it to myself for a very, very long time.
So besides seeing colors, were there other experiences that you had that you...
Yeah, I'll give you one, for instance. So I was working with a client one day and the thought just came into my mind that a dog had died by the side of where I was sitting. Random. It was just a random thought. And I would say to myself, I can't say that. So I had this dialogue with myself as I'm working. I can't say that. I don't even know the lady. I think it was the first time I'd seen her. So I'm sitting there, can't say that. No, just carry on. And then she said, oh, by the way, my dog passed away last week, just there.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's things like that, random. And at the same time, that was when I started to correlate like I started to notice similarities in people that I was getting, and the emotions that I kind of knew the emotions that they were experiencing, and that's when that started, and that's really when what I do now began. And it took about 10 years for it all to come together. What I do now is called emotional release activation, ERA for short, and it basically finds the emotion, the negative emotion, or the emotion that's being blocked. We find the emotion, and then I teach the client a couple of techniques that they use while I'm working with them, and then we transmute. We find it. I can tell you where it is in the body. I can tell you what it represents. We find it, and then we transmute it into peace.
Can you give me a concrete example from a client you worked with on how you did this and what the result was?
Okay. I've got to be careful here, Nori, because I don't want to give too much information.
Well, we want to give people a more concrete sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm trying to think of something that.
Let me put this on pause for a moment, okay? Can you give us a concrete example of how you work? Okay. Lesley, can you give us a?
Okay. You froze.
Lesley? Okay.
Yeah.
Lesley, can you give us a concrete example of how you've worked with a specific client and the kind of results you got, how you did the work and what you got?
Okay, so when we find the emotion that's being blocked, there can be a physical. So one client, there can be a physical release. Obviously, there's an emotional release. And the physical release that I will share with you is once I was working with a client who had like a piece of bone in her neck, which was twice the size that it should have been. And after we released the emotion, the bone literally shrank to its normal size within seconds. That's one. Pain being released is normal. Pain just disappearing is normal. That happens a lot. Obviously, there have been times when people have been very sick and their sickness has gone, which they would say it was down to the work that they did with their emotional body.
So could you describe a little bit more how you think that this is working to release the emotions and cause major physical changes to take place in your clients?
Right. So every emotion has a resonance, and every part of the body has a different resonance. So I find that whatever emotion is being experienced or hasn't been resolved will settle, will be attracted to a part of the body that resonates with that emotion. For instance, anger, bitterness, resentment will be held in the liver. And it will sit there and continue to resonate, which then attracts different people, different faces, different places, different situations to the person, and make them feel more angry or more bitter, not to punish, but to let you know that this original trauma hasn't been resolved yet.
So in a sense, what you're doing, you are attracting to yourself experiences and people and situations that match the frequency that you are running without realizing it.
Yeah.
And that becomes sort of a feedback to you that this is what's going on, that you are somehow experiencing this, and that's why this is showing up, something like that?
Yeah. So you'll find yourself in situations that are the same. You're still in the same. You're attracting, like I said, different faces, different places, but it still feels the same. So you still might feel very angry in certain situations that you're triggered. Basically, we're triggered. And what I do is I find the emotion where it's being held in the body. So the client will use two techniques that I share with them whilst I'm working with them. And the two things together are very powerful. I mean, there are lots of modalities that work with the physical body, and they will release a certain amount and you feel better, but you're still triggered a week later, a month later, a year later. And there are modalities that will work, for instance, talking therapies that will help you to feel better in the moment and maybe come to some conclusion. But you can still, you might still be triggered by a similar situation in the future. When you work with the emotional body and the physical body together in tandem, it seems to eliminate the charge that's creating the trigger, and then therefore the physical body benefits from the result of that. And so whatever is being held as the emotion is released from the cellular memory, then the body seems to get better. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I guess I'm kind of wondering what those two techniques are that you use. Is that something you can give us a little bit of an indication about? Or is this something that you prefer to not share because you don't want people to do it wrong? Or what's the story here?
Yeah, so the technique, the things that we use, both of them are things that we use naturally every day, but you're going to use them in a particular way. So I don't tell anybody how I work.
Okay.
And the reason for that, the reason
what is the reason for that?
Because the ego, because these techniques are so simple, and this is what I found out at the beginning when I first started doing this. I would share it with people openly and found that the results, I wasn't getting the results. If I didn't tell them, I would get the results. And the conclusion I came to was that if the ego thinks it knows, it will sabotage.
So it's kind of a sneak attack on an end run around the ego to work directly with the emotional body?
So it's better for the very first treatment that I know nothing about you and you know nothing about the treatment.
Okay.
So I have thousands of clients, literally, over the years, because we're talking about a very long time, that have used, they've learned ERA, we've released the main blocks initially, and then they've used ERA after for themselves and been able to maintain peace thereafter. Themselves. They don't have to come back to me.
So what you do is you work with the client, you take them through a couple of processes, you help them transmute the emotion that they are experiencing that has been causing them physical pain or discomfort, and then what?
Or mental pain.
Okay, and then you transmute it into an experience of peace.
Yes, that's the goal.
That's the goal, is to come to a state of peace.
and to be able to maintain that. The goal is to become peace.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
And how has this impacted you in your life? It sounds as if this is an ongoing tool or set of tools that you use just ongoingly and to maintain a state of peace in your life.
Yeah, it's you have awareness from a very neutral space, so you're able to respond rather than
React.
Yes, thank you. Rather than react. I mean, react is so far away from me now. I can't even think of the word. You're able to respond in any given situation, and when you're in what I call a peace bubble. I call it a peace bubble. When you're in peace, you're resonating peace. And if you're resonating peace, you tend to attract more peaceful situations. That doesn't mean life doesn't happen. So we're in the middle of a maelstrom in the world right now. A lot of frightened people. So you can use the era to transmute anything. There's nothing that you can't transmute. So with what's happening in the world right now, if it generates fear or uncertainty, or even just decision making, you can transmute that into peace. And if you've used it a lot, if you've really devoted yourself to it, as I had to, you can transmute it in seconds, literally seconds. So you're in the storm, but you're not of it. So you're at the center. So you're watching what's going on and transmuting. And every time we transmute something that's negative into peace, it has to have an advantageous effect. It ripples out. Mm-hmm. It ripples out as peace. So, and I've found with myself and with clients, like for instance, you can feel, if you say to somebody, "Are you all right?" and they say yes, you can feel if they're not, can't you? You'll say, "Yeah, I'm fine," but you feel, "Oof, no, you're not." There's something not right. So there's a dissonance between what we're being told and what we're feeling. And that can make you feel uncomfortable. And then, of course, the ego jumps in with all kinds of stories. We tell ourselves, "Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that." But in actual fact, the discomfort that I'm feeling is because what I'm hearing, what I'm being told, or what I'm feeling, and what I'm being told are two different things. They don't align. So if somebody, or for instance, if somebody's angry and I can feel that anger coming from them, if I'm not aware, because using ERA brings a great deal of awareness, if I'm not aware, then I'm automatically going to
You cut out again.
way of dealing with things might be to be angry about.
You cut out again. If I'm not aware.
Yeah.
Start there.
If I'm not aware of how the emotions work and how the energies work, for instance, then I might react back.
Cut out again.
It's either back off.
I'm sorry, you cut out again. I'm going to try changing cables and see whether that helps. Just 1 minute here, okay?
Okay. Are you okay? How is this going, Nori?
It's going fine. We're going to have to do some cuts, but if I'm not aware,
Sorry.
start up there again. This cable hopefully will work better. Let's start up where you said, if I'm not aware.
If I'm not aware of how our emotions and our energy fields impact each other, then the person that's feeling angry towards me, I'll feel it, and I might respond by backing off, my energy closing down, or by being angry back, by reacting.
Exactly. So you're reacting rather than being an open space where then you can choose to be peace and bring that into the relationship, into the bubble, as you put it.
As it. And if I'm at peace, I'm resonating peace. The other person is getting neutral. They're not getting anger back. And what I've found is that the argument, or whatever it was that was going to manifest, just dissolves. And because the other person isn't protecting themselves anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and it very much matches my own experience and the kind of work I do as well. So this is quite lovely, and you're doing it in a very different way, or maybe, I'm not sure. But it sounds as if we're doing something similar, which is just to keep creating as much as possible, turn lemons into lemonade.
That's right. And also when you're in that state of peace, you have access to information that isn't from your mind. It's from the heart.
Right. So that leads very nicely into my next question, which is, what advice do you have for people for how they can find and fulfill their life's purpose? Since it sounds as if you found and are fulfilling your life's purpose in terms of helping people clear out negative emotions and learn to keep being peace. And that out of this, you have more insights, more awareness, you know more what to do in any given moment. So what kind of advice would you have for people in terms of finding and fulfilling their life's purpose so that we can together create heaven on earth?
Heaven on earth, yes. So I would say it found me.
Sorry?
I would say it found me.
Say more.
My purpose found me. I wasn't looking to be a holistic practitioner. Not even in my psyche at all. My life was guided in a way that brought me to that place. So if I had known what I know now then, well, no, that's not really a good example because I didn't. So the process that I went through actually brought me, sorry, did you hear the doorbell then?
Nope.
The process that brought me to where I am now was life experiences, but they were guided experiences. I had no choice. We think we have choice. We're told we have. We are told we have choice. We can manifest anything. But I question that.
Well, it sounds as if we have choice. We
have choice. We can choose ego or self.
It's not to do what we know we're here to do. And then we have all kinds of things that show up that tell us that, nuh-uh. Right? Yeah. Something like that. But when you find it, then you just know that you're on the right path because then things start showing up to support you. Is something like that?
I think that's absolutely, yeah. I would say that and this is the really hard part, because when we live from our head, we're convincing ourselves that this is the right thing. because we feel that that's what we want. So we do everything we can to do that because we feel that that's what we want. And we don't actually know if it's conditioned or if it's natural. But when you live from peace, you're living from a place where you feel more. You feel that it's right. You're not in your head at all. I can't move into my head. It's difficult for me to move into my head. Mm-hmm. So I live from here, mm-hmm. and everything, the information. This might be a little difficult to. And this is, my clients have the same experience if they follow what I teach or what I share. I don't like the word teach. What I share is that it comes from here, and it's like your head's not involved at all. It's a complete feeling of rightness.
Yeah.
You allow life to come to you.
It's kind of like a heartfelt knowing.
Yeah. But you also know that that's not right because you feel the resistance. Now, sometimes...
How do you mean you feel the resistance?
You don't like it. It's like, no. Mm-hmm. That doesn't feel right.
So that's when you know that that's not the path to go?
It doesn't feel right.
Are there times when, because the mind has been conditioned to think in a certain way, where it doesn't feel right because, and you respond emotionally, when you clear out the mental stuff that you've been conditioned over your lifetime, or it's traumatic experiences, when you clear that, then you have a different emotional response to some guidance that you were then reacting to before?
Right. So when you work with ERA, you can't go into your mind. All of that disappears.
Okay.
There's no desire to think things through. The mind, in my experience, is there for logistical purposes once the heart's made a decision. So, for instance, my heart says, okay, you need to go to Peru for a holiday, for instance. Somebody might say something, or I might see a video or something, and I go, oh, I'd love to go there. So it's like, oh, I'd love to go there. Then you start to think about planes, tickets, hotels. So the logistics of getting to Peru start to kick in, and that's the mind.
I completely understand what you're saying. I've played with going at it from the opposite end, where I will, if I'm in a situation and I don't really know what to do, it's just I don't have the clarity yet, I will sort of think through and even write down all the things that I'm mentally thinking, so I get them out, and then it's like it clears it, and then I just let it go, let all the mental stuff go, and maybe take a nap or take a walk or go do something completely unrelated, and somewhere in there something will pop in that will just feel so right.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a very good way of doing it for a person that is very mentally orientated.
Well, I don't do that all the time. That's for situations where
I get it.
Factors involved that I'm trying to kind of organize out what I think.
Yeah. But the thing is, beyond that, because I used to make lists and categorize, and it helped. It helped to write down how I was feeling. For instance, one day I wrote, I never used to be able to do that. So I was told, just start with your shopping list. So I did. And then the next thing I know, I've written 4 A4 pages. And when I looked at it, I didn't realize that I'd written it. So the subconscious mind took over and wrote all this stuff that I didn't remember writing. So yes, that does work, but there comes a point when you don't need that even.
So you just go into a state of peace and just hold the state of peace and kind of hold the inquiry as an energetic, just kind of hold it without even mentally stating it and just see what shows up?
Yes. Yeah. 1 day, 1 second, as we said at the beginning before we started recording, 1 second at a time. Because what I've realized is that there's a plan for everybody. And if we stay in peace, we're in alignment with that plan.
Beautiful. So that is where we find our life's purpose. That's the plan. And so by being in a state of peace as consistently as we can, then you're saying things will just naturally show up and you will feel good about taking the next steps. Is it kind of like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not, there's a saying to take the road of least resistance. That said, I've heard that quite a lot recently, to take the road of least resistance. And sometimes there is resistance. But the resistance is there because you need to expand your conscious awareness a little bit more, or quite a bit more, in order to be able to take on what's next for you.
Is it kind of like we have bigger and bigger assignments, you might say?
I believe it's wisdom. We're growing wisdom. The wisdom of, shall we say, God's wisdom. We're moving more into God's wisdom.
So in terms of what you would suggest for people in finding and fulfilling their life's purpose, when they encounter resistance, what do you suggest?
Well, if you can deal with the feelings that are being generated by the resistance, so if it's fear,
do you mean when you say to deal with, do you mean to feel them?
You can feel them, whatever. I use era. I teach it, share era. But, some people, like you say, they might write things down and go for a walk. They may...
Well, when you say to deal with the feelings, to recognize the feelings or exist.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Do you, there's a phrase, what you can feel, you can heal.
Yes.
So
yes.
Would you recommend that people then feel the feeling fully of resistance or fear or do you just sort of shunt that to one side and just go into peace without feeling the feelings, or what?
Well, I think using the feeling, the emotional body is what I do. So using it is essential. But how you deal with those feelings is very individual. People have their own way of dealing with the feelings. I'm not suggesting at all that you suppress them, because that's the worst thing. Sometimes just the acknowledgement of something is enough, and that's it. It dissolves simply because it's been acknowledged.
Yeah,
it's almost like the emotions know when they're recognized. And that's enough. That's enough. So once that has been transmuted in whichever way, cut.
Okay.
Sorry, I've forgotten what this was about.
I'm asking for what advice would you have for people in terms of finding and fulfilling their life's purpose, and we were exploring, how you handle resistance when that comes up.
I started the sentence, and I can't remember where I was going with it.
Okay. That's okay. No, this is good. Do you want to start over then? So with your clients or with yourself, if you let's say that you're in a stage where you're going from one level of working and now you're expanding, your wisdom has expanded, your ability to handle challenging situations has expanded, and you find yourself maybe drawn towards some action, but there's a part of you that's resistant. How do you recommend that people handle that kind of resistance? And what do you recommend for people to handle that kind of resistance?
Yeah, that's what I was, sorry, I've just gone completely blank. You see, I'm stuck here, Nori. This is what happens.
No, this is perfect. I think we're modeling it right here now, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is really big. I mean, you mentioned earlier, Lesley, and spot on, that we are in the middle of a maelstrom right now in the world. And I think the fear that people are feeling is enormous for many people. There's a breakdown in communications because some people feel that that group is to blame and this group feels that group is really stupid, or whatever it is that the judgments, the mental judgments are. And you've been doing work now for 25 years where you have found that you can help people transmute these feelings. And now, but you've been working pretty much with one-on-one clients, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you, just out of curiosity here, are you, and you know, my work is, a lot of it is in the interview domain, right? Trying to understand as deeply as I can what is making another person tick, and how are they having successes in their lives? What do they consider successes? How are they helping to contribute to creating heaven on earth? And doing this, I'm in the same thing right now, because I'm finding myself asking myself, is there something much bigger that I'm supposed to do right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sensing that about you as well, that you are asking somehow yourself, is there something much bigger that I can do right now that can help with helping more people, a much wider group of people come to peace within this maelstrom and begin to project peace out into this maelstrom?
Yeah.
Does that ring?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's essential that happens in order counteract the negativity. It's a battle.
So how are you feeling yourself right now? For example, when you said you were feeling kind of blocked or stuck or something, how is this showing up in your life for who you are and what you can maybe begin to move into contributing to a world that is so urgently in need of finding peace in order to move forward with creating heaven on earth?
Yeah. So, well, I'm not stuck in the sense of how I move forward, because it's coming to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not stuck in that sense.
I wasn't meaning that you were stuck in that sense. It was more that you pointed to your chest and you said it was.
Yeah. No. Yeah. This is just sometimes when. So the words are here, but they haven't quite come up yet.
Okay.
It's a very strange experience. I can feel the energy here, and so you'll see that I breathe and I breathe down.
Yeah.
And then that space, it's like creating the space for the information to come out.
I totally understand.
I can't go in here.
Yeah.
I can't go in here. When I say sometimes, often with clients, I'll say just a second, and I have to just breathe for a second, and then the information comes, but it's not coming from me.
I work in very
I'm
simple.
not thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling and waiting
Yeah.
for the information to come out.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is that it's kept very simple. Everything's kept very simple.
Yeah.
I'm a simple girl. A lot of the people that I meet, I was complicated. I was very complicated, but my essence was simplicity. I was a very simple. The things in life that bring me joy are very simple. They're not, they're not like big things. It's very simple. A smile, literally. To see somebody smile is, for me, is like, wow. I don't have to do anything. They're smiling, that brings great joy.
Yeah.
Great joy. The things in this world that, happiness, people want to be happy. Well, for me, happiness is a stable ego, is a healthy ego. The ego loves the happiness. The egoic part of us, the part that's connected to the material world, is the part that wants to be happy. The soul is, joy is not, yay, wow, what we see is this, joy. That's not joy. Joy is quiet. It's a sunrise. It's a child playing, or puppies. Also, it's like we go, wow, we're in awe. We're in awe of something. That's joy. Happiness is for that part of us that is, in this world. And when the ego is healthy, and you're seeing the world from peace, from this center, you're just aware and you're watching. So you're kind of in the world, but you're of it as well. So you've got the two aspects aligned. It does matter what's happening, in the sense of you want to see wonderful things. You want to see heaven on earth. Yes?
Yeah, manifested in the physical dimension. I think we can have heaven on earth in ourselves, in this, as you call it, this peace bubble. However, if you look around and you're looking at all the data out there, there's an awful lot, as you described it, that's a maelstrom.
Yes.
A lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and so forth that is incongruous, is not matching up with a state of heaven on earth out in the world around us. We may carry heaven on earth in us, but we want to also bring it out into the world around us, something like that.
Yeah, but the majority of people don't know that feeling.
The feeling of peace.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know how to access it at will.
Exactly. And that's why the world is the way it is.
So is there perhaps, Lesley, are you perhaps just this is just my love for you expressing, okay? Is it perhaps, is there a way that your work can now be manifested on a much wider plane, to help a wider scale, to help many, many more people access this peace bubble that you manifest, access this peace bubble by maybe is there another possible thing that's awaiting you to help with bringing making the bubble of peace bigger so that it can envelop the whole earth and the whole cosmos?
Yeah. Yes, I've started teaching what's called we've called it the Inner Peace Initiative, sharing that. And there are people that I'm working with at the moment that are learning ERA, how to be a practitioner of ERA, and also then helping others within the Inner Peace Initiative. And that the Inner Peace Initiative is the expansion of individuals becoming peace, learning how to become peace, and being supported in that, because it's not easy initially, because you've got to overcome the way that we tend to say, like I did it myself. In 2008 it was. So I was using ERA. Something would happen. I'd use ERA, transmute the difficult feelings, come back to peace. And then I just went on with my life. Then something else would happen. I would transmute again. Then something else would happen. And in 2008, I literally was at such a low point. Even though I was using ERA, I could get out of the feelings, but life was kind of like nothing. It was just nothing. And I was like, what can I do? What am I supposed to be doing? And I got it straight away. You've got to become peace. And that was when this particular journey started.
Okay, so instead of transmuting situations one at a time as they would show up, you were being now guided to be peace.
I had to become peace. Yeah. So everything, even if something good happens, I transmute it into more peace.
Yeah.
There's nothing good or bad. There's nothing good or bad.
Right. It's the possibility is to walk around and to, I really like what Jesus said, I and my Father are one. Mm-hmm. Because I think that if you are one, you are peace.
That's right. Well, when you're in the vibration of peace, you are one. In that state, you are one with anybody else that's in that state.
Yeah.
You're resonating on the exact same frequency. So even though, like, for instance, I am here and you are there, if we were resonating in peace, we're separate, but we're one. Right. At the same time. And you pick up intuition, telepathy, those sorts of things happen in that state.
I think also you attract other people in who are also resonating at that, and you have all manner of serendipitous occurrences with other people who are resonating peace.
That's right. But equally, it works with lower frequencies.
Yes,
as we know, like there's a saying, isn't it? Misery loves company.
Yeah. Right.
So if you're choosing peace, you're choosing to elevate yourself, and help the world as well.
Nice. So what
very unselfish act.
I'm sorry?
It's a selfish and unselfish act all at the same time.
Well, I think we have this idea of selfish being only thinking about yourself. But if you think about who am I really, as a little child, I had this experience of this, what I call the big me. The little me was...
I did the same.
Huh?
I did the same.
Oh, really? The little me was the stuff that was somehow connected with the body and right nearby the body. And the big me was when I would open out and I would get all kinds of amazing information that it saved me from getting raped, getting killed, really, truly this. And I realized, I think the first time I remembered it was day 2 after my birth. Because I remember to the first day of my birth, but I really remember day 2 because I began to explore the parameters of where this thing that I was now in, which was my physical body, where were the limits to it? Because when I only was down to, I could only experience myself down to here, to my heart.
Yeah.
And then I discovered that by doing micro movements, I could bring down the awareness until I discovered, there are two things down there, which were my legs. And then day 3, I had casts put on my legs, because I was born pigeon-toed, and I thought I had failed my mission because I couldn't maintain awareness in this physical dimension because I was so uncomfortable. These were so heavy, and I just felt as if I had 3 days old and I'd failed my mission.
Yeah. Well, I often say that when for selfish, my analogy is fishing for the self. So when we're selfish, we're fishing for the self. Obviously, people are selfish if they're coming from the egoic perspective, that it's not good. But if you're coming from the soul perspective and a very aware perspective, you're actually fishing for yourself, your true self.
Yeah.
And then you can be very unselfish because you've filled that void, you've filled what I call the God space. And when we're in a state of peace, that space is completely full.
Very nice. Yeah.
Completely full. And the things that we thought mattered don't matter. They don't matter. Like if something happens and whereas before, oh, this really matters, now it doesn't. And if it doesn't matter, we're not creating matter. What we put our attention on, what we put our focus on is what we tend to bring about because we're putting all our attention on it.
And we're resonating at the frequency of whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you move into peace, it's neutral. It's completely neutral. You're not one way or the other. It's just almost like a nothingness. And it seems that in this duality, there's yin and yang, as we know. There's good, bad, up, down, cold. But when you're in peace, you're in no thingness.
Yeah.
There's no thing. So you're not in the material. You're aware of just what is and observing, simply observing.
You're connected with the big me. You are one
with the big me. Absolutely. It's so funny that because I used to use that as well. The big me and the little me.
Yeah, I remember talking about the big me when I was, 3 years old, and just I would get kind of this curious look from the adults.
Yeah.
So, Lesley, where do you see your work going now in terms of expanding out and impacting more people in the world?
Well, obviously continuing to be in peace, being peace. And as I said, I've started teaching, or sharing the information with others, and they will then go out and do what I do. Nice.
So is there something that, some way that people watching this can participate with you if they feel is really drawn to master this way of being peace?
Yeah, or if they just want to know a little bit more, they can contact me on innerpeaceinitiative.com, hotmail.com.
Great. One of the people I interviewed in the very first summit, who was a woman I met under super interesting circumstances in Tokyo, Japan, who has gone through an amazing series of transformations in her life, is doing work that's somewhat related, I think, or is very related, maybe with different techniques. But I think what I'd like to do is introduce you to her. Her name. She's Japanese. Her name is Yumi Kikuchi. She's a very dear friend. And she and her husband are also teaching the same, a modality for bringing people to a state of peace.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, they're in Hawaii, but I'll connect you. And her interview is on the first summit. So, and she describes the journey she went through. When I met her, just so that to have a funny image here, she was 26 years old and was a stock and bond dealer on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. And at 26 had earned so much money doing this that she and her sister had bought a big building in Tokyo, which was
Right.
most expensive real estate in the world. And within, I think it was 2 months of meeting me, she quit her job because she said till she met me, she had never met anyone who was a full-time activist. And she had never seen anyone succeed in doing that. And that gave her, I guess, somehow the courage to quit her job. And she just leaped off the cliff and began doing all kinds of stuff. And gradually, and I think that all of us are coming to this same place, more and more she realized that anything she did, that she was effective when she did it from a place of peace.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And you were her cue.
Well, and the thing is, I think we're all of us, many of us now are realizing there is no, I like this, there's a phrase, there is no, it was A.J. Muste said, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why you've got to become peace. And it's not as difficult as people think. It's very, very simple. It's so simple. They just don't, in my experience, they didn't know what it felt like to be in peace. But once you've experienced it, you can move into it very, very quickly. So long as you make the decision, as long as you choose peace. You've got to choose it.
Yes.
You've got to want it more than anything, really.
Yeah.
So that you choose it. Otherwise you'll be tempted by the old egoic mind.
So is there anything else you would like people watching this any other message that you would like people to carry away from our interview here? There's absolutely nothing that can't be transmuted into peace. And when you know that, there's nothing that can intimidate you or make you afraid. It's, you can feel, don't get me wrong, you can feel the fear coming up unexpectedly, mostly you're put into situations and you'll feel it coming up. But when you know you can transmute it, there's no fear of actually moving into any situation. Does that make sense? Totally.
I'm not afraid of life. So even the what's going on in the world right now, it develops faith, it develops trust. That if you remain in peace for me is the experience of God, as close to experiencing God as I've ever experienced. So when I'm in peace, I feel I am one with God, and I feel safe. It's palpable. You feel safe. As soon as you move out of peace, you don't feel so safe. It's literally that simple. When you're in peace, the peace I'm talking about, you feel safe. And as time moves on, you trust that everything, and you don't want to be anywhere else.
Absolutely. This so perfectly fits with the first commandment. I am the Lord thy God, which has brought thee out of the house of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So that basically says, be one with me and you will be guided.
Yes.
Be peace and you will be guided.
That's right. That's been my experience.
Yeah. And I also think, that when Jesus said, build your house on a rock,
mm-hmm.
That's the rock, is be one with the infinite eternal one, and be peace and you will be guided. and that's the rock for building everything on a new civilization. I mean, I've been talking about, and we're going to be launching this conversation as part of the Create Heaven on Earth conversation, the conversation about having a great people's reset.
Yes, but it's happening, isn't it?
It is happening. It is happening. More and more people are waking up and realizing this is where we need to come from to create the beautiful new world we all dream of, is to be ourselves, and then we will be guided, as you said so eloquently, to do our parts. And that's a high moment thing. So Lesley, this is wonderful, and I want to thank you for who you are and what you are being and doing. And I look forward to exploring how we might play together.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nori, for inviting me onto this. And I apologize if I've been a little bit clumsy at times with my analogies, etc. But I've really enjoyed talking to you and being given the opportunity to share how important peace is with people. That it's like it should be, must be our number one priority.
Right.
Peace, number one priority, and the ripple effects of that will move out.
Absolutely.
And obviously you get the benefit of it yourself.
It's a win-win-win.
Win-win-win. It absolutely is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lesley.
Thank you, Nori. Much love.
Much love.